Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Lou and you're listening to the Hera Hotspot podcast, which is all about well-being for women both at work and at home. We'll be talking to female entrepreneurs about their business journey and what inspires them, whilst also what living and working holistically looks like to them. To hear and be able to relate to other people's journeys can be a powerful reminder to us all of our own inner strength, resilience and abilities, whilst also inspiring us to better ourselves. In this series, we'll also be meeting some holistic practitioners and exploring their wonderful therapies and how they can help us in our everyday lives. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to introduce Mandy Hyde, a homeopath from Kingsbridge. We explore her health journey and how it introduced her to the wonders of homeopathy, and how looking to maintain your health is a better model than only treating disease. Mandy's passion for holistic health matched my own, and I will definitely be inviting her back to explore this more. So, Mandy, if you sat next to someone at a dinner party, what would you tell them that you do?
Well, that's a very good question, because I think over the years I've changed it a little bit. I think if I'm unsure of who's at the table, I'd probably go with the word I'm a therapist, because it's quite a general term and you can't really offend or alienate. I have learned over the years that, mentioning the homeopathy word can be a bit contentious. Some people feel very strongly about it and it's all a load of rubbish and mumbo jumbo. And so I think it depends who's at the table, if I'm honest. I'm getting more confident, I would say. When I was at a wedding last year in Malta, and there was Dutch and there was some Germans on there. People are so passionate about homeopathy in other parts of the world. But I find in England, I've been trolled on Facebook for being a homeopath, things like that. And there are always people you don't know,
Yeah.
Of course, friends wouldn't do that. But so I'm proud to be a homeopath, but sometimes I don't want to go into battle over it, particularly at a social event.
And yet I suppose you find that the people who do feel strongly about it, because they tend to have their mind made up, the likelihood of you being able to change their mind is probably quite remote. So do you just think, actually, I know that, so I'm not even going to go there?
Yes, I've learned over the years, I'm just going to waste a lot of time and energy. Sometimes I'm up for that. Sometimes I don't mind having a good, healthy debate, But there's other times where I just, sometimes people just want to ridicule. But, it's few and far between, I'd say, these days.
But when you do explain it for people who are either unsure or critical, are you able to validate it enough that they start to change their mind or look at it differently?
Usually, I don't know why it seems like this, but usually women are more open to it. But some men are very, very, just very sciencey about it.
Yeah. And it is. It's that science. It's that black and white. And science absolutely has a place. I don't knock it, but it's not everything.
Yes, exactly. You chopped your leg off, you're in an accident, you go into A&E, they're going to sort you. There's other stuff going on at different levels, and that's really, that's how I got into it, because I was so poorly and taking conventional medicine and not getting better,
So you had hyperthyroidism in 2000. And how long had you had that? How long had you been looking at conventional treatment for that?
Well, I think I've been thinking about this really, because I was actually really young to have quite a severe condition, really, in hindsight. I was only in my mid-20s, and I was probably had the symptoms for a good year before I got any diagnosis. I was very I was losing weight, I was having hot sweats at night time, I hadn't had a period for a good 12 months, and actually had terrible skin. So I was going to the doctors about acne, and my GP referred me to a skin specialist, who actually said to me, the first thing he said is, I know you're here to talk about acne, but has anyone talked to you about your thyroid? Because my neck was really enlarged, the gland was, really out.
So can you just explain to me the difference, Mandy? Because you get hyper and, is it hypo? Is there two difference?
Yes, that's right. And basically, hyper is the overactive thyroid.
Right.
Hypo is when it's underactive. So when it's overactive, which is the hyper, that's when the thyroid gland is actually producing too much of the thyroid hormone. It's a combination of things. Your thyroid is part of your immune system. It controls your pituitary gland, which obviously is the hormones. It's all connected. And really, and I look back now, I can see what was happening. You know, holistically, I was working really hard. I had a brilliant job. I was working in TV. I was filming all over the world, you know, working on the Clothes Show. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I do. I loved it. Yes.
Yeah, it was a really good job, you know, and I was out and about, you know, filming fashion shows, Paris, Milan, London, you know, it was very exciting times. But actually, I was working so hard that in the end, I think my the thyroid had gone into overdrive because it was trying to give me the energy, trying to help me do everything I needed to do. You know, I was working in London, living in Birmingham, flying everywhere. I was a vegetarian. I look back now and think I wasn't a healthy vegetarian. You know, I wasn't eating properly. So I think I'd become really deficient in lots of ways, but my body was trying to keep going. So the thyroid went into overdrive really and speeded everything up to help me. But, you know, I'd lost weight, I was going to the toilet 6 times a day, you know, which is all part of a thyroid disorder. But it was probably 18 months before it got diagnosed. And then I was on really heavy medication called carbimazole, which was to slow the thyroid function down. But actually, it just made me feel worse because I think at the start, before I went on the medication, okay, I had some physical symptoms of sweating and, you know, obviously my hormones, my periods had stopped, but I felt okay, actually. I felt reasonably good once I went on the medication to slow everything down. It made me really quite depressed. You know, I became really antisocial. I didn't want to go out. You know, the period still hadn't returned. So supposedly things were meant to get better. Actually, I felt worse.
Did the doctors ever look at why it had happened, or were they only ever treating the symptoms? Okay, right, well, this is what your thyroid's doing, so we've got to stop that. They never asked why your thyroid, like you just explained, and you can understand now what it was trying to achieve. Was that never approached in an allopathic way?
No, never. And, you know, to be fair to my GP, you know, he put me under a really good professor, somebody in you know, a thyroid clinic. I was under the best people because it was so bad. And actually, it's unusual to have that kind of thyroid problem at that age. I was probably 27 by this point. So I was under, you know, a really well-respected top thyroid doctor who, when I did mention eventually that I'd started doing homeopathy, actually, I'll tell you about that later. But so I was on all, you know, they put me on the highest dose. I was on 40 milligrams of this drug. And then, you know, that was the other thing. You go for blood tests with your thyroid and it will come back saying, oh, yes, you know, your TSH level is now this and your T4. So they're measuring your thyroid function through blood tests. And they say, oh, it's much better now. There you go. You feel much better. But actually, the medication will start telling you your function is better. But actually, you don't feel any better at all. If anything, you feel worse. So in the end, I was talking to people, you know, the thyroid action group, you know, I was so desperate. I gave up work at one point. I gave up my job for a good 4 or 5 months. I just couldn't work. I was just really depressed and hormones were out, but everything was out of balance. And that was when a really good friend who's thinking about it brought me down. She lives in Devon, which is another reason I've ended up coming to Devon. So, but we lived in Birmingham at the time, and a really good friend, she was seeing this homeopath, Bernie Hubble. She's still going. She's in her 70s. She's still working in Birmingham. And she said, I've told Bernie about you. And she says, you're too young, because it had got to the point where, you know, a year and a half on this awful medication, my only options were to have this radioiodine treatment, which again is really old-fashioned, where they basically give you radioiodine and it kills part of your gland off, your thyroid gland. So my neck was out here, it was huge. The gland had, you know, had overproduced. So what they can do is, if the medication doesn't get rid of or sort the problem, they give you the radioiodine, and then they open you up and remove part of the gland. Now that's when alarm bells really started ringing for me, because I wasn't feeling better from the medication, but when I started to quiz, well, how do you know how much of my gland to remove? they were actually like, well, we don't really, we just open you up and then we take what we think. And that was when I just thought, actually, this isn't what I need really. Yeah, the radioiodine treatment is, again, it's indiscriminate amount. They give it to you, and then for 6 weeks you're potentially radioactive, so you can't sleep in the same bed as anyone. You can't be, you know, if you've got children, you can't be with your kids for like 4 weeks. That was major alarm bells then. So I just thought, what am I taking? A, I've been on this quite heavy medication that hasn't made me feel better. And B, you now want to give me something that's actually radioactive potentially. So, I mean, the doctors, I used to have really difficult conversations with them because they kept saying, this is your only option. And I was like, but I don't want to take that. I don't want to have an operation. I'm 27, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when my friend who was seeing a homeopath, I didn't even know what homeopathy was, but she said...
Were you into any holistic therapies at all then?
You know what, I probably did a bit of meditating and I did some yoga, or I liked crystals, you know, I'd always got a few crystals I looked at, but no, I didn't even know what homeopathy was. And when my friend said about it, and she's, you know, I've told this, and he said, you're too young and, you know, you can get this sorted. I was like, oh, okay. But then I remember thinking, I can't pay £50, you know, it's quite a lot of money to go and have a consultation. But and then I booked it, and then I nearly cancelled it because I was really busy with work, I think, at that point, because I was freelancing by this point. I'd left the BBC and I was a freelancer. But my friend sort of called me up and said, no, you've got to go. And oh my God, it was the best thing I ever did. You know, it wasn't an easy road to health, but it was really quite good sitting there talking to this person about my symptoms. And I never forget her saying, you can't look at you're depleted. You can't give from an empty cup. And that's what essentially I was doing. You know, I managed to run myself down so much that I was just running on empty. And it was, you know, the thyroid that was keeping me going. It was the adrenaline. And so it made complete sense. I didn't see it right then, but, you know, having that thyroid problem really was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it's turned me around and made me look at life in a different way.
The thing I find really interesting about that, I mean, there's so many things I find interesting about that, but initially it was that we can't give an empty cup, which you and I now both know, but you wish that as a 20-year-old, you think, how can we teach that to that generation? And it's this assumption that your body will give and give and give and give and give. And it's like, oh shit, I pushed it too far. I've got an immune disorder, or I've got a variety of conditions. It fills me with this sadness that it has to take a chronic condition in order for us to learn that. My husband has a chronic condition, and I always say to him, you're like a racing car. I try and put it into male language so he understands. You need to have a pit stop. You need to have your tyres changed. You need to change your oil. Why do you assume that you can race around the track and never touch your car? Where do we get that from? That perception.
Yeah, this is it. I think, absolutely on the nail there. I think our view of health in this country is quite, you know, it's not necessarily the best, if I'm honest. Very, you know, it's very problem, fix it. You know, it's not holistic, is it? No. We don't always look at it from all the different angles, really.
And it's how we wait for something to go wrong.
Yes, that's right. You know, in Chinese medicine, you know, you go and you see your practitioner and your acupuncturist to keep you well. You don't wait to get sick and then go. And I'm starting to realise, I think osteopathy is like that. You know, you see a good osteopath, he'll say, come every 8 weeks. Don't get poorly. This will keep you well. And I think, you know, if we could start looking at health and healthcare in this country, that would really, really help us, I think. But sadly, as we all know, or, you know, people in this field know, that often it's a big illness that makes us or brings these alternative or complementary therapies to us. You know, people say to me, how did you find homeopathy? I feel like it found me, really. You know, it came to me, I needed it, and thank God that it did come, really.
So what was that like when you saw this lady in Birmingham? How long did it take for you to recover or to get on a path of wellness again?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an easy road. You know, it probably took a good I came off all the medication really under her, with taking the homeopathy. So as symptoms improved, I could reduce my medication. And also it was about taking control of your health. I think in the UK, quite often, we do what the doctor says, the doctor says this and the doctor says that, and we kind of hand over the responsibility to a doctor. Well, actually, we have responsibility too. And that's what Bernie Hubble, the homeopath, taught me. She said, make a note what your blood tests are every month. Write down what your TSH level, your T4 is. I didn't even know what they were. But I was writing them down, and then you can see, and with her, we'd look at it. And, she was giving me remedies, to help with them, with the, the symptoms I was experiencing. But the great thing about homeopathy is that you can work on that mental, emotional level and the physical at the same time. And that's quite often conventional medicine, particularly in the UK, can't really, it can't help in that way. And also, as you know, it stimulates your own healing mechanisms in your body to rebalance. So you're working from the inside out. And that's the key, I think. And whether that's acupuncture, kinesiology, whatever we use, holistic medicine is working on the whole. And that's how you get a cure and a result, really.
Well, you're looking at the cause.
Now.
Yeah. You're taking into account, again, with Touch for Health, you're looking at a physical, emotional and biochemical level. You're taking into account your lifestyle, your approach, your thoughts, the people around you, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting out of your body. It's all of it. Whereas allopathic medicine is just, well, here's your symptom. Let's make that symptom go away. Let's basically put a plaster on it more often than not, when we're not looking at trauma. And then, oh, look, the symptoms have gone. I remember taking my daughter to she's now 22. She must have been about 10, and she had really sore around her lips. And this is kind of before I dipped my toe into holistic medicine properly. And I took her to a skin person, and he said, with all honesty and a straight face, he said, "Oh, it's because she licks her lips too much. That's why she's got this hideous eczema around her mouth." And I looked at him, and I knew he wasn't right, but I didn't know what was right. I didn't think that it could be food or emotion, or, if you look at it from a Chinese medicine point of view, that what that part of the body represented. But I knew he wasn't right. And I thought, sorry, that's just an idiotic answer. She licks her lips. That's why she's got this hideous eczema.
Yeah, and it is, it's good to question stuff. And also, as we know, mental, how we treat, how we think, it does become a physical thing. And that's something that Bernie taught me, or homeopathy has taught me, is that, you can't give from an empty cup. I had no boundaries, really. I've been brought up, I love my parents dearly, but they're people pleasers. I was brought up to be a people pleaser. So my boundaries were weak. And actually, I say that's one thing homeopathy definitely did for me. And I use it all the time with women, because we're all, we all do it. It makes you be the best you can, protecting yourself, say no. I was working in a job where I was servicing so many people, and and working away and trying to be there for family, and actually that's what made me ill. So actually having those boundaries. So whilst the homeopathy was helping me physically, it was really working on me emotionally as well, to make me stronger, which in turn got me better, really.
Well, it's making you relevant, in my mind, and making you important. Because I had my mother, again, is still around and love her dearly, but her motto was, it's very quite old-fashioned, never complain, never explain. It was, I was youngest of 5. She just did what she did, and she looked after us, and I'm not important. And when I first trained, I said, "Oh, would you like me to, have a session with you?" And she looked at me and she went, "Why would I do that?" And I said, "Well, we can talk about stuff, and you can see where you are and help you." And she went, "No." She went, it was just total anathema to her to actually think, where am I? Am I important? Am I happy? Am I healthy? And again, when you're brought up with that, you give, which is a good thing on one level, to be kind and to look after others. But you, as you say, if you don't put yourself on the top of the triangle, which is not selfish, I said to my husband, to me, it's the most selfless thing you can do, because if you're in a good place, you can only give to the maximum of your ability without sacrificing yourself in any way.
It's really important. And I think, as women, we have to learn. We have to learn you know, to protect and preserve ourselves. Otherwise, we will just be, you know, on the floor with everyone trampling us if we're not careful, you know.
How long after this experience with Bernie, was it, I've got down here 4 years later, you started to train? Was that like a light bulb moment, or actually I really just have to train to be a homeopath?
You know, it's really funny, isn't it? Again, this is why I think homeopathy found me, because I didn't have that moment where I thought, right, I want to learn to be a professional homeopath. I literally was just fascinated by, you know, 5 years later, I think it was, I was thinking, how can this be? I was so ill. And, you know, and I sat in front of doctors who laughed at me when I said I was taking homeopathy, and they said, you'll be back in here within the year, asking me for this operation and being really, you know, not very nice. And I remember thinking, well, I'm sure I won't, because actually I've never felt better. But I think, it took a few years later, and I just thought, I need to know, how can this be? How can these little balls, and, you know, are made from flowers or herbs or minerals, how can they have done all of this? And that's when I basically, I called up. I remember it was a Thursday afternoon, and I just thought, I'll just do a Google on what homeopathy courses are out there. And then it turns out there was a college about 4 miles away from where I lived, and they were starting a new year that following Saturday. You're welcome to come and sit in for an hour, see what you think. And I got there at 9:30 on Saturday morning, and I think by 10:30 I signed up and said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a 4-year diploma in homeopathy, or practical homeopathy it was called. And this is at the College of Birmingham, practical homeopathy. And I loved every minute of it. I literally, because I was working Monday till Friday, so I'd work really hard all week, and then I'd go study every other weekend, but, you know, 9 till 5, Saturday and Sunday. But it was so refreshing. I loved it. It was really great lecturers and teachers there. And I was the youngest, actually. I was probably 34, 35 at this point. And I was the youngest in my group. There's probably 20 people in the class every weekend. And there was 4 years. So there'd be like 100 people in the college every weekend when we did it. So I was like the baby of the group, really. I mean, that's quite interesting, isn't it? A lot of people, you know, they all start studying this kind of stuff in their 40s, really. There's quite a few men on there in their 50s. But most people had come to it through illness, or through their children, actually, through kids being chronically ill and then getting better with homeopathy. So that's what I just feel like I just fell into it. I didn't think I'm going to learn to do this. I just thought, this is interesting. I'll go along for an hour, and the next thing I know, it's a 4-year course. I loved every minute of it.
It is, when you said people fell into it, I mean, I came to it 15 years ago before I got divorced, and it was almost actually a pinnacle in that decision, because a lot of it is counselling, isn't it? You're talking to someone about yourself for an hour, however long the appointment lasts. Had never had anyone say to me, how do you sleep, how do you drink, how do you do this? And it was so in depth, and it really again made you question, actually, who am I? You just take for granted the fact that you walk a certain way, or you sleep a certain way, or you respond a certain way. And that idea that you are a different constitution, that you and I can have the same pathogen, but because of our constitution, because of the way we are made on every single level, our bodies will respond in a totally different way. So it blew my mind. Yes. And I can't remember why I went originally. I can't remember I had an illness. But over the years, I would treat my children. I'd go, oh, well, you know, they've got this. I'll give it a go. You know, you never know. And it proved to me time and time and time again. And that's why part of me understands, that Libran in me understands why people go, how can you know, this is diluted down thousands of times, and it's literally an energy medicine. It's literally a sugar ball. And so part of me goes, that can't be. And then the part of me that is open and trusts and has experienced through severe changes in mine and my children's health. And there are times, even after 5 years in, I thought, there's no way. I love homeopathy, but even this is beyond it. And I've never found a condition that it's beyond. And as a local homeopath said to me when I did a little mini course with her, the body is capable of healing anything. And I think that's what we miss, isn't it? You think, oh, it's a broken bone. I've seen it on the x-ray. There's no way homeopathy can help. I can literally see it's broken. But the body can heal anything, I believe.
No, I totally agree, and that is a different way of looking at health, how we're kind of brought up with it, I think, because let's face it, the body's a clever thing, isn't it? You cut your hand, your that big cut you might have, a gash in your hand, that will heal whatever you do. It will obviously heal a bit more nicely if you put a plaster on it, or if you stitch it, it'll be a really good heal. So all the time, the body's already knows what to do, but you tailor it to people. So you might have 5 people in front of you who are all diabetic, but they will all have it for different reasons. One might be a genetic diabetes, one might be down to diet, and there's 50 different remedies for diabetes. So you tailor it, and that's how you get. We're not allowed to use the word cure anymore, but you can cure disease and disease in the body with homeopathy.
That key word of disease is used so differently in holistic medicine and Western medicine. In Western medicine, it's always, you've got a disease, and it's said in quite a disempowering way. In fact, going back to what we were saying earlier about how the consultants were talking to you and their sort of prognosis and threatening you coming back, it's totally disempowering your own healing. Whereas when you look at it, the tenant that your body has the ability to heal itself, and that you are just in a dis-ease, you are not balanced, and if you find ease and not diseased, your body then has the ability to heal, which is so much more empowering. That's what I love about energy medicine. It's the most empowering thing that's in my life, I think.
Yes, absolutely agree. And it saddens me, because I have got, a lot of patients, particularly elderly patients, actually, say, well, it's up to you. What do you think I need? Or, the doctor's done this. And
people give away their health to someone else.
Yes. And I had done that. I didn't see it at the time, but I remember taking homeopathy, and my mum and dad were very much, don't do that, the doctor has said don't take it, you must keep doing what the doctor says. Now my parents they've gone full circle. They're with me. They don't take anything from the doctor, really, unless obviously they would if they had to, but they come to me. They're in their 80s, and they're not taking any medication.
Wow.
So it's a big part of health, really, and mental wellness is to be in tune with us.
And also there's an aspect, going back to what your parents were saying, they were fearful of not following the doctors because it couldn't work. And actually, if you do anything in fear, that's not gonna, it's not a good place to heal from it at all, is it?
No, that when you're working with someone holistically, we're working on all those levels, and things like the fear and the panic and the worries, they go, don't they? The royal family, they use homeopathy, have done for years, and look at them. The Queen's in really good health. Prince Charles has just got over COVID-19, but it is because you can work on so many levels. You can just work the disease, or you can work on the inherited illnesses or the predisposition to illness and pathology. We've got everything in our toolkit, and that's what at the start of this I said about different nationalities. You go away to Europe and Spain and France and Holland, and all this homeopathy is still available on the shelves. It's a shame that it's open and as available here as it used to be, really.
So how do you think that the difference is? Do you think we touched on this earlier, do you think it is the pharmaceutical companies are different in Europe to here? Why does that attitude change, that it's so much more widespread and accepted there, and it's so vilified here? And as I think we touched in a previous telephone conversation, it's almost mocked in this country. It's almost, I think someone said to you, it's quite old-fashioned homeopathy, and it's not relevant anymore, which I think is just an extraordinary thing to say. How something that's been around for so long can be old-fashioned.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was quite shocked when somebody said that to me, but then I thought, actually, maybe they're right, it is a bit old-fashioned now. But no, I think people are just more in tune with other parts of the world. We've become quite Americanized in the UK, and obviously the pharmaceutical companies are huge now and pump so much money into everything, and they definitely, I know for a fact, they definitely played a massive part in shutting things down holistically, or with, you know, alternative therapies in the UK. You know, a lot of the hospitals for homeopathy, they actually play a big part in not you know, in not supporting anything that is opposite to their medicines. You know, so years ago you would go into Boots and Holland and Barrett and you could pick up all sorts of different natural medicines, particularly homeopathy. There was a whole range of homeopathy, but not now. They've stopped it all. And
but then if you look at the beginning of Western medicine, and again, I'm terrible at history and I'm terrible at facts, it was Rockefeller, wasn't it, who then discredited all the naturopathic doctors, and because he wanted to use derivative oil, and that was kind of the start of pharma, wasn't it? And it was all about money then, and then funding all the hospitals and having to make people have a certain qualification. It was never an altruistic thing, was it? It was always based on money.
I think, you know, it's all money led, isn't it? This is the thing. And it's control as well, you know. I don't know, I want to get into this, but you know, I do think the rest of Europe has sort of it's remained the same, if you like, and hasn't been taken over by big pharma in the same way that the UK have and America. And, you know, it's very controversial. But you know, you can really see the difference now. You go into a chemist and you can't get any of the stuff you used to be able to get 10 years ago in terms of homeopathy wise. I was in Spain in the summer, and they've got whole walls full of homeopathy there. It's exactly how it used to be. You know, you go into a pharmacist in France and half of the pharmacy is homeopathy. You know, and they haven't discredited it there like they have in England and in America, really.
I think shifting away from pharma, I remember my mother saying, so I'm 50 and I'm the youngest of 5 children, and she had the last 4 at home. So 50 years ago, a home birth was just a given. It was accepted. It wasn't questioned. It's just what they did. So I have 4 children. My first, so 22, I had a hospital birth, and then the other one, so 20, 18 and 10, I had at home. So much harder. And politically, it wasn't as accepted to have a home birth. And I remember my mother saying, it was just politically, that's what they pushed. It was almost not like an political agenda, but it was acceptable socially that you had a home birth. No one questioned it. It was perfectly safe, you know, for all the same reasons why I chose it 30 years later. So people forget when things aren't on the shelf that actually there are social opinions or social pressure or bigger powers making these decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all, you know, a lot of it's fear culture, I think we live in, you know. I was 40 when I had my child, and, you know, I wasn't allowed a home birth and all of that because I was classed as an old mum, you know, which I know I was, but in hindsight, I should have just forced it, you know. It's very difficult in this world sometimes, I think, to keep, you know, to be holistic and feel that you can. When
to have a voice, really, and to be heard. I had to push for my first home birth, and only because I had the support of the Association for Independent Midwives, who would kind of balance the argument, because I had my GP saying if my wife had had our children at home, they would have both died. So it was basically saying I was going to kill my child. When you're pregnant and all the hormones, it's so easy to buy into that fear and to be influenced by an outside voice. And only because I balanced that with my antenatal teacher and with AIMS did I hear the other voice, and I read and I empowered myself through that knowledge and that support to actually go, actually, thank you for your opinion, but actually I'm okay with this opinion I'm making. It's my legal right to have a home birth. But it was a real struggle. It was, you know, if I had been a little bit more intimidated or fearful or emotional, I wouldn't have gone down that route, but I had to really fight for it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think, really influenced, particularly when you're pregnant, we're very influenced about what's going on around us, aren't we? The more, you know, all that energy, you feel it more. But no, I totally agree. I went into a bit of a fear state, actually. And you see it, you know, even in, you know, I meet people all the time, and, you know, I meet nurses, doctors, midwives, and quite often they are quite supportive of homeopathy, but they won't say it out loud at work. It's almost like they're not allowed to discuss it in the NHS, you know. And a couple of them have said to me, you know, I'm not allowed to say it at work, but I know it works. You know, I see the benefits of homeopathy. In fact, a few of my I've got a few, I've got like paramedics on my books, you know, I've got people, but
it doesn't take over from Western medicine. There's a place for everything, and I think maybe they fear that we're discrediting it. And as you say, when it comes to trauma or serious things, Western medicine is vital. I mean, gee, look at the situation we're in now. You know, how would we cope without the amazing NHS and the amazing doctors and the way you're approaching it? But it's, you know, I'm not anti-doctor at all. My husband often accuses me of being anti-doctor. I'm not. I just think there is a place for supporting yourself holistically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good phrase, that, you know, complementary medicine, isn't it? You know, people say alternative medicine, either are fine, but actually I really see it as a complementary medicine. You know, you can take your cancer treatment and take homeopathy alongside, and you will have a much better cancer treatment process because of it. You know, really good. And it also just boosts your immune system and your body to help heal itself. So I agree. I wish it could be more hand in hand, working alongside, actually.
I often say to my husband, I always talk in analogies, I always talk in pictures, because he has chronic pain, and that is so he had a spinal stroke. You know, you can see on the MRI where the damage is the spinal cord. That's kind of not going away in a hurry. But I say to him, I don't purport that holistic health can make your pain go away or miraculously mend the nerve endings that are sending mismatched messages. But if you look at your body like a skeleton or a structure of a house, I think holistic medicine, taking either his condition or other conditions, like you say with cancer, it will support you, so it makes your journey more comfortable. So it'll help you sleep better, or it'll help your guts function better, help you absorb the nutrients better. It's about supporting you whilst your body is in a very serious crisis. Because without that, it's just fighting. You know, you're not changing the oil or putting the walls up to support it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. But for some reason, it's I don't know, men seem to find it harder to make the association. I don't know if it is about male and female, but I do, you know, I know quite a few men who, you know, even after I've given them remedies, and this wouldn't be people like paying clients, this will be someone who's injured themselves in front of me, and I'll say, look, have this, because you can't move, you need to go to A&E. And then 10 minutes later, they're like, oh no, I feel so much better. It must be the Nurofen. You know, they just will not acknowledge, you know, some people are like, right, okay. Life's a journey, isn't it? And it's whether people are prepared to believe in the process and learn from it. Sometimes.
So you've also brought into your skill set flower remedies as well. So when did you add that?
I did some training around the same time, actually, and I tend to use them less and less at the moment, I would say. But I use them. I've got some wonderful essences I use with children. Actually, I work in a children's home. And, you know, children who've obviously experienced lots of trauma don't necessarily know how to talk about it or even want to talk about it. So I find flower essences and working with essences, really, it's another really gentle way of helping people move through. So it probably works on an even deeper level, I would say, than homeopathy. And it's very subtle. And I think that is the great thing about this type of medicine is it is so gentle that often you don't even, you know, if you have to go into talking therapy, you have to talk about your problems, or, you know, sometimes that isn't for everybody. Talking about things often can make it worse. So actually, if you can see what's going on a general level, you can give essences which help move people through a state and make them stronger, definitely emotionally.
Yeah,
you know,
it's definitely my go-to and I've talked about this before in a podcast. If I'm out of sorts, and it's always so much harder to treat yourself, isn't it? It's so much harder to be objective. And I know that I literally just need an energetic shift. And if a balance for myself doesn't work, flower remedies are so simple, but I find them so powerful. It will really create a massive shift mentally for me. And from what I understand, and again, I'm not trained in it, it doesn't. So you have the negative and you have the positive state of the emotion. It doesn't suppress the negative, but actually it gives energy to the positive to rise up, to then to squeeze the negative. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It moves, and this is, you know, I'm not heavily scientific about all of this, but it moves people into the best that they can be, and I know that that's true because I see it with people in front of me. And I saw it with myself. I couldn't put my hands on any rent. I had probably 30, 40 remedies over 2 years. I couldn't say it was that remedy or that one that did it, but often it's the combination of it all. And it will only, if it's not right for you, it won't give you bad. It won't make things negative. It just won't work. It will. It's body will only take up what it needs, if you like.
But it's quite a different way of looking at it. Again, looking at Western medicine, which we're so used to going, I have this condition. If you give me a treatment or give me a pill, it will go away. It's very binary. Whereas you say for a holistic journey, it's just never like that, because sometimes if you need to get from A to Z, you have to go through the alphabet. You have to get to lack of fear, or you have to get to acceptance, or you have to build your self-esteem in order to find yourself valuable, in order to then seek treatment, in order to validate the treatment. And it is a journey, and that it takes time and it takes money sometimes to do that, if you're not sort of doing that on yourself. And sometimes that's a long journey for someone. They don't understand or respect all those steps they have to take. So a different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it all the time. Somebody might come in, and then they will say appointment 3 or 4. Well, actually, my sinusitis has gone now. And I would have been giving remedies with that in mind, but I wasn't treating the sinusitis. But what you'll see is that everything gets better. Over time, everything will improve. And obviously with children, it's very quick. They might have mouth ulcers. Those mouth ulcers will be gone within a month and they will never have them again. But with adults, there'll be other stuff going on in the background. And sometimes I can't explain it, in terms of why has that one ailment got better as well as that ailment. But then again, if you're treating the whole person, which you're always looking at with homeopathy, that will be the outcome at some point.
So shifting sideways a bit and viewing yourself as a businesswoman, which to some degree you are, because we all are, because we're dealing with people and we're having to run our businesses and marketing our business to people. What have been your biggest lessons or hurdles in that part of your journey?
A big hurdle for me was giving up my TV career, actually, because even though I found the love of homeopathy 15 years ago, or 20 years ago probably, it's taken me a good 10, 12 years to turn my back on my old career, because that was who I was in a way. And the homeopathy, I couldn't match my TV career with the homeopathy, and financially I couldn't match it, and it was a big gamble giving up something I'd worked hard for years. But that's been my biggest hurdle, and now I've done it, I'm really happy. I feel so much happier. I love treating people, and I love the homeopathy. But now it's about me pushing forward. I need to really start doing a bit more marketing and focusing on my business, because it won't expand and be huge. I want to treat people and people to get better, and I want to be really successful at it, actually. I don't want to just be, a half-hearted homeopath. I want to be a really successful one. But that takes work, and at the moment, I'm not sure I'm putting enough into my marketing, and, this is why I wanted to do, when I'm talking to someone like you, and I need to move forward. I need to be doing more on this side of it, because actually it's all in. If you tell people will understand and become interested, won't they?
And sometimes it can feel a little bit of a dichotomy when you are. I've for years, for the last 5 years, it's like I just want to serve, and it's been this frustration. Although I've loved what I've done, and there's been absolute value in my journey as an entrepreneur for 10 years, I'm aware I've had this voice of I want to serve. So when you start to get into that energy of it, and I'm able to do it now, it's such a different energy. You think, oh, but I've got to be a business person as well. I've got to be a therapist and get my energy right and be present for my clients and hold space for them. And, I respect the journeys, every journey that's shared with me. I feel so honoured. It's a very different space mentally than being a businesswoman. But then you think, actually, I've still got to do my marketing. I've got to wear these two really, they're not opposed, and it's not they can't live together. But for me, they're very different energetically. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also we're drawn to what we like, aren't we? If you like the business side and you like how they've got to where they are. So actually, I talked to the wrong person, and then they don't want to talk or don't like homeopathy, I take that a bit personally. I've got to learn to stop that. It's always a challenge to focus on the areas we don't necessarily think we're very good at, I think, isn't it?
And I found that the beginning of my journey in the last 6 months, this part of me felt really private, and I wouldn't really discuss it with my husband because it was so. And it's not just the touch for health, it's everything. It's my holistic output, it's my crystals, it's my homeopathy, it's my flower remedies, everything I choose to use, or my outlook in life. It felt precious, and people don't always get it, and there sometimes is judgment, and I didn't feel confident enough to put it out in the open. So in the last 6 months, for me, it's like I'm sharing something that's deeply personal and deeply important, and it's having to go, I just have to share it, and I have to trust and be strong enough that it's going to be received well. And I don't know if people are going to be kind, I suppose. And obviously that's all about me and my self-esteem and my fear of judgment. And, it's all my story. But I hear that because it is sometimes hard, because it means so much to us, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, because what I've seen your platform, Hera Holistic, and I love it. I love the title. I love the brand. And that's actually given me confidence, so we're all feed off each other because you've got this platform. I think, wow, yeah, look at that, it makes us all want to join, and it's good,
Good.
And it's funny coming, I've recently moved to Devon, and, I feel like I can be more open and holistic and more myself here. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's just in my head that I've always
it's Devon. No, it's Devon through and through.
I just feel like I can get more in tune with myself, and maybe I need to do that before my business will expand here. I've got a great practice in Gloucestershire. But I'm living in Devon now. So, but what I have learned is, life is a journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. But it's all a process, and I'm sure I'll look back at this in 10 years or 20 years and think oh gosh, if only I knew then what I know now. I know one of my big hesitance actually about really making that switch to homeopathy, to be a homeopath and actually work as a homeopath, was I thought I was too old. I was, what was I, mid-40s. Actually, I realised that most people make a career change in their 40s.
Yeah.
But, in my head, I was like, 40 is really old. It's too late. You've made your mind up. Like, you can do anything, really, can't you? You can do anything you want in life. It's just if we've got that mental power to make that change. And that's what I'm realising, is that, age doesn't matter, does it? It's
I see so many women in their late 40s and their 50s, and it's almost normal now for me to see most women get to that point and go, I want to make a difference. And even if it's not necessarily working in a holistic sense, it's actually a people-focused helping format, right? They're moving away from business, or they're volunteering, or they're being a governor, or they're working, retraining holistically. And I do think there gets to a point, but I think we come into our power. And if you've been a mother, there just comes a stage in your life where actually I have a wisdom. Actually, what's happened to me and my outlook is valuable, and I can use that to help other people. And you also get to the stage where you start to move away from worrying what people think, and it's more important that you make a difference rather than worry about the judgment.
No, I think you're right, actually. And I think over the, I've been treating older women for years. And have noticed the last few years thinking, everyone post 50 they just don't give a damn, these women. They're just really happy with. And I think as a younger woman, you kind of think, oh, I don't want to get old, who wants to be old? Actually, I see it differently now. That wisdom and that life experience is far more interesting, isn't it, than what we look like or how we've aged.
And it is, absolutely. For me, it's, I'm coming out of the end of motherhood, even though Daisy's only 10, because I've got older children and I've got 3 teenagers, which hopefully they'll go soon. And I come out of that, your identity changes. But also, again, my daughter's 22. She's beautiful. She's thin. She's 6'4". She's an absolute powerhouse. She inspires me. But when your children get older and they start to become women or more sexual beings, and I'm not sure that's the right term, my identity is not about being sexy. It's not about being thin. It's not about having to attract a man in order to procreate. I've come out the other side of that. But you identify with where you are differently. And I now identify with that wisdom. And what I look like is less important. My focus is different. And it's because the next generation are doing that, and I can't compete with that. I can't compete with people who are 3 sizes smaller than me and, you know, have all that energy. So yes, I've just gone sideways.
No, I totally agree. And it's about being happy, really, and content, isn't it? Or not even being happy, but just being at one with who you are, really.
Yeah, just accepting. So my last question is, what is the biggest lesson you've learned, do you think? Something that has made a core difference to your outlook or your way of being?
Well, I don't know. I think you have to love yourself, really. You have to learn to appreciate. You know, my dad always used to say, you have to love yourself to have to love another. And I think, I know for me, for one, I'm always struggling a little bit, believing in myself. So I think if I can get to a point where I, value myself and my self-worth, I think that'll be a good place for me, really.
I think that's so valid and so true. Thank you. That's a really lovely note to end on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Hera Hotspot podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you'd like to check out our Facebook page under Hera Holistic. Next time, I'll be talking with June Barkley, an Anusha healer and angel channeler. And as a dear friend of mine, I'm so looking forward to sharing her big heart and laugh with you on this next podcast. Till then, take care.